Have you ever rented out your basement? Imagine a strange man living right beneath your feet. He never talks much, always pays in cash, never asks questions. At first, everything seems fine until the nights come. You start hearing faint knocking from below, a foul smell creeping through the vents, and then one night, the sounds just stop. When the police break open the basement door, what they find is beyond horrifying rows of bones, neatly arranged, bones that are over 100 years old. But the real nightmare begins later that night when you hear slow, heavy footsteps coming up. From the basement stairs, the city of Fairview is small enough that everyone knew where the late-night radio station was. Perched at the edge of downtown, just beside the empty railroad tracks, the studio was a squat brick building that had seen better decades. Its lone tower blinked red against the night sky, visible for miles, as if it were a heartbeat warning travelers not to stay too long. Derek Moore had been hosting the graveyard shift at WQCR 97.7 FM for 5 years. His voice was a comfort to insomniacs, night drivers, and factory workers clinging to the last hours of their shift. His program, Midnight Callers, was simple. People phoned in, shared their stories, their secrets, sometimes their pain, and Derek listened. On Monday night, the call came in for the first time. A raspy male voice, oddly flat but deliberate, slipped through the line. "There will be an accident at the corner of 5th and Main," the caller said. Derek chuckled nervously. "That so?" "You sound like a traffic report, friend. Care to tell us your name?" No answer, just static, followed by a click. Derek let it roll off. Prank calls were part of the business. But the next morning, a drunk driver ran a red light at 5th and Main, colliding with a delivery truck. 2 people died on impact. The second call came the following night. This one is on Route 9, near the old water tower. "A man won't make it home." Derek's chest tightened. He asked again for a name, but only got the same static and a click. By dawn, the police were at the station. A motorcyclist had lost control near the water tower, skidding under the wheels of an 18-wheeler. The description matched perfectly. After the third call, a house fire that killed a mother and child, Derek could no longer laugh it off. He went to the police himself, reporting the eerie predictions. But the detective in charge, a stout man named Harlan Briggs, only shrugged. "You get loonies on the radio all the time, Moore. Somebody could have set those things up themselves. Self-fulfilling prophecy. But what about the static? The way he cuts off?" Derek pressed. "And the timing, it's always less than 12 hours before it happens." Briggs narrowed his eyes. "If you're telling the truth, then either this guy is behind the accidents, or he's something worse. Either way, we'll trace the calls." But the calls didn't trace. The numbers came up as blocked, the origin signal bouncing strangely across towers. One technician said it almost looked like the calls weren't coming from a phone at all, but from inside the frequency itself. That thought kept Derek awake long after his shift. He had grown used to long, lonely nights at the station. The hum of the fluorescent lights, the constant drone of fans keeping the servers cool. The smell of old coffee, all of it had become background to his voice. But now, every creak in the building seemed amplified. Every shadow outside the glass booth pressed closer. The fourth call broke him. It was Wednesday. The voice returned, raspier, as if the caller's throat was deteriorating. "Train crossing. Just after midnight. 2 dead." Derek tried to stay calm on air, but his hands shook so hard the mic picked it up. He didn't wait this time. He cut to a song and dialed Briggs directly. The detective was reluctant, but he posted a cruiser near the only active train crossing in Fairview. At 12:17 m, a sedan tried to beat the lowering gates. The train smashed it to pieces. Both passengers were killed instantly. Briggs came to the studio the next day, pale as paper. "We didn't see that driver until he was already halfway through. It's like the guy was waiting for the train. Do you believe me now? Derek demanded. Briggs hesitated, then nodded. If that voice calls again, keep him talking. We need a lead. That night, Derek braced himself. His heart pounded as the phone lines blinked with the usual chatter of insomniacs. For an hour, nothing unusual. He let himself believe maybe it was over. At 2:04, a main 3 lit up. Derek swallowed hard. Midnight callers, you're on the air. The voice was softer now, almost whispering, but the words were clear. Tomorrow night, it happens here. In your building. Derek froze. What do you mean? Who are you? Static roared, but this time it didn't cut off. Through the static, a faint sound emerged, like a man laughing underwater, guttural and broken. And beneath it, another noise, the dragging scrape of something heavy across the floor. The line went dead. Derek tore off his headphones, breathing hard. The booth felt colder, as if the ASA had blasted without warning. He glanced at the soundproof glass separating him from the empty control room. For the briefest second, he swore he saw someone standing there, a pale figure, blurred, watching. Then it was gone. And outside, down on the street below the station, brakes screamed. The sound of brakes tearing across asphalt echoed up into the night like an animal's scream. Derek rushed to the studio window. From the 4th floor, he could see headlights swerving, a truck fishtailing across the empty street below. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed destined to crash into the station's foundation. But the driver regained control at the last second, skidding to a stop only a few feet from the brick wall. Derek pressed his palm to the glass, sweat beading on his forehead. The truck's driver stepped out, trembling, staring up at the station's glowing red tower as though it had dragged him there against his will. The phone rang again. Derek jumped. He almost didn't want to answer, but instinct took over. He put the line live. You see, the voice hissed. It's begun. The static that followed was different this time. Beneath it, he swore he could hear another voice layered under the rasp. A woman's voice, faint, crying. Who are you? Derek shouted. What do you want from me? But the line went dead. By morning, Detective Briggs was back. He surveyed the skid marks outside and the shaken trucker, who swore he hadn't meant to drive there at all. He'd blacked out at the wheel, only waking as the truck screeched to a halt. Briggs leaned against the booth door. This isn't just some sick prank anymore. I'm putting a man here tonight. You won't be alone. Derek wanted to argue, but truthfully he welcomed the idea. The last few nights had hollowed him out. His eyes burned from lack of sleep. He couldn't stop hearing the static in the quiet, like it had embedded itself in his skull. That night, Officer Mallory took the spare chair in the control room. She was younger than Briggs, with sharp features and the kind of alertness only rookies carried. She joked to Derek about being his audience of one, but her hand never strayed far from her holster. For 2 hours, nothing. Callers chatted about ghosts in their houses, broken hearts, and late-night confessions. Derek almost felt normal again. Then line 5 lit up. He answered cautiously. Midnight callers, you're on the air. A silence stretched, thick and heavy. Then the rasp. Look to your glass. Derek froze. Slowly, against every instinct, he turned his eyes toward the window that separated his booth from the control room. At first, he only saw Mallory alert, tense, watching him. But behind her, in the reflection of the glass, another figure loomed. A man, gaunt and colorless, with sunken eyes that glowed faintly like embers. His mouth was open too wide, as though unhinged, and a smear of shadow trailed from it like smoke. Mallory, behind you. Derek shouted. She spun, drawing her gun, but the control room was empty. Only the hum of equipment filled the air. Derek's heart hammered. The phone crackled with laughter-wet, gurgling laughter. Mallory grabbed the receiver from him, yelling into it. Who the hell are you? The voice didn't answer her. Instead, it whispered directly into Derek's ear, though he wasn't even holding the phone anymore. You've kept me company long enough, Derek. It's time I joined you. The booth temperature plummeted. Frost crawled across the inside of the glass. Mallory cursed, pulling Derek out of the chair. She dragged him into the control room, slamming the booth door shut behind them. "Stay with me," she ordered, scanning every corner of the dim studio, but Derek wasn't sure he could. His breath came out in short white puffs. His ears rang, not with static now, but with a chorus of whispers layered over one another, dozens of voices moaning in anguish. He clutched his head, trembling. Mallory held him up, her eyes darting to the monitors. One of the security feeds flickered. In the grainy black and white frame, a figure stood in the stairwell below the station, tall, thin, unmoving. Another camera blinked. Now the figure was on the second floor landing. Another blink, third floor. Each time the feed refreshed, the figure was closer. Mallory swore under her breath, backing Derek toward the exit door. But when she pushed it open, the hallway outside was pitch black. Not dim, completely swallowed. The emergency lights were out, the exit signs dead. From within the darkness, the same rasping voice spoke, but now it was not confined to phone lines. It filled the entire building, vibrating through the walls. "You invited me, Derek, night after night. You let me in." And then the sound of dragging like fingernails clawing against concrete moved steadily up the hall toward them. Mallory raised her gun. Derek pressed himself against the console, shaking, and in the glass of the booth window, where their reflections should have been, he saw only one figure. The gaunt man, smiling. Mallory's finger hovered on the trigger, but firing into that impossible darkness felt pointless. The air itself pressed against them, heavy with the smell of burnt wires and something sweeter rot, faint but unmistakable. Derek gagged as it filled his lungs. The dragging sound came closer. A whisper slithered through the hall, so near it seemed to crawl along their skin. "Don't fight. You've been hearing us for years." Mallory yanked Derek toward the emergency stairwell door. She shoved it open, but the stairwell was warped. The concrete walls bent inward like melted wax, railings twisted at wrong angles. The fluorescents buzzed overhead, blinking erratically. And for a split second, Derek saw shapes pressed into the wall's faces, hundreds of them, mouths open mid-scream. "Back!" Mallory slammed the door shut, panting. Every screen on the control panel flickered at once. The security feeds no longer showed the building. They showed accidents, the drunk driver's crash, the motorcycle under the truck, the house fire, the train wreck, each tragedy replaying in grainy black and white. But this time, Derek saw something new. In every frame in the background, the gaunt figure stood watching. His breath hitched. He was there. Every time, Mallory's jaw tightened. Whatever this is, it's not just a voice. It's feeding off it, off the deaths. The phone rang again. Neither of them moved. The shrill sound cut through the silence, echoing like church bells. Finally, Derek, shaking, picked up. This time, the voice wasn't rasping. It was smooth, calm, almost kind. "You don't have to be afraid, Derek. You've already joined me." Derek's stomach turned. "What the hell are you talking about?" Static roared, and through it came a sound that froze Mallory in place, a live feed of her own voice, whispering desperately, "Run, Derek. Run before it takes you." She dropped her gun, clutching her head. The static grew louder, drowning out her scream. Her knees buckled. Derek tried to hold her, but something yanked her back hard. She slid across the floor toward the booth window. The glass rippled like water. Pale hands burst through, clawing, dragging Mallory inside. She screamed as her body twisted unnaturally, her face distorting in the reflection until she looked like one of those melted stairwell phantoms. Then she was gone. Derek staggered back, choking. His only companion erased as if she had never existed. The booth phone still dangled from its cord, swaying gently. Derek forced himself to lift it again. "You bastard! What do you want from me?" The voice sighed, low and patient. You've been my vessel all along, Derek, every broadcast, every late night caller. You gave me your voice, and through it, I grew. But now, I need more than your voice. I need your body. The lights overhead exploded in a cascade of sparks. The tower outside flickered wildly, bathing the room in pulses of blood-red light. Derek staggered toward the studio door, fumbling with the lock. But when he threw it open, he wasn't in the hall anymore. He was standing at the corner of 5th and Main. Cars honked, neon signs blinked, a drunk man stumbled across the street, and in the distance, a truck barreled toward him. Exactly like the accident from the first prediction, Derek froze. He turned only to find the street behind him gone. Black void pressed up against the pavement's edge, swallowing everything beyond. The truck's horn blared. Derek bolted, sprinting toward the sidewalk. But the faces were there again. Those melted stairwell figures, clawing at his arms, dragging him toward the street. He screamed, breaking free at the last second. The scene dissolved like smoke. He was back in the booth, alone. Except he wasn't. The gaunt man stood inside with him now, his shadow stretching long against the frosted glass. His ember eyes fixed on Derek. "You can't run from me," he whispered. His breath smelled of soil and grave dust. "You were the broadcast." Derek pressed against the console, trembling. His headset crackled, even though he wasn't on air. The station's frequency carried only one sound, though, his own heartbeat pounding, amplified across Fairview. Then beneath it came the screams of countless voices, the lost, the dead, all bleeding into the static. The gaunt man leaned close, his mouth splitting wider, as though unhinging enough to swallow him whole. And with a final rasp, he said, "Tomorrow night's accident is you." The words sank into Derek's chest like ice. "Tomorrow night's accident is you." He backed into the console, fumbling with switches, killing the feed, desperate to cut the broadcast. But the red on-air light above the booth refused to go dark. No matter how many buttons he slammed, the glow only pulsed brighter, as if mocking him. The gaunt man tilted his head. "They're all listening, Derek, the whole city, waiting for your finale." "No," Derek whispered, "I won't give you that." But his own voice betrayed him. It slipped from his lips and into the headset, carried live across the airwaves. His plea for help echoed out into every lonely car radio, every bedside clock radio, every diner speaker. The gaunt man reached out, skeletal fingers brushing the side of Derek's face. His skin burned ice cold. Derek flinched, gasping because beneath the icy touch came flashes, visions crammed into his mind. He saw wreck after wreck, all the accidents, all the deaths. He felt the impact of twisted metal, the fire's heat, the choking smoke. He heard the child scream from the burning house, the wail of the train horn, the shattering bones. And in every scene, standing silently in the corner, was himself. His face blurred, his mouth moving in perfect time with the gaunt man's whisper. Derek fell to his knees, clutching his skull. "No, that wasn't me." The gaunt man crouched low, ember eyes locking onto him. "But it was. Your voice drew me out." Every lonely heart tuned in, every soul who whispered their pain into your line, I reached them through you, and every accident gave me strength. "You've been my partner from the start." Derek staggered back, shaking his head. He tried to stand, but the floor tilted beneath him. The booth warped, stretching long and narrow until it resembled a coffin, the glass pressed closer, suffocating. His reflection stared back, pale and gaunt, eyes glowing red. He screamed, slamming his fists against the window, but his reflection only smiled. Then the phone rang. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Derek knew he shouldn't answer. He knew the moment he touched it, something irreversible would happen. But the shrill tone drilled into his skull until he couldn't resist. His hand shook as he lifted the receiver. Static filled the line. Then a familiar voice spoke, his own voice. "Tomorrow night's accident is you, Derek. A bullet to the head right here in the booth. They'll call it suicide. His blood turned to ice. No. I'd never. Reflection cut him off. In the glass, his mirrored self now held a pistol. Slowly, deliberately, the reflection raised it to its temple. Derek stumbled back, his empty hands shaking in terror as the mirrored gun pressed against the mirrored skull. The gaunt man leaned close, whispering into his ear. All it takes is one broadcast. One pull of the trigger. The sound will echo across the frequency, and you'll be mine forever. The gunshot rang out. The glass didn't shatter, but Derek fell as if struck. His ears rang, his vision blurred. He pressed his hands to his head, expecting blood. There was none. Yet the echo of the shot carried through the booth speakers, carried into the city beyond. Fairview listeners that night swore they heard it. Some turned off their radios in terror. Others sat frozen, unable to move, while that single sound played again and again between bursts of static, and then silence. When Detective Briggs arrived the next morning, the station was empty. The equipment was still warm. The on-air light glowed faintly, even though no one was broadcasting. Briggs called out, searched every floor, but there was no sign of Derek or Officer Mallory, whose name he didn't even remember assigning to the case. Only the booth remained. Inside, the chair was pulled close to the mic. A headset lay on the table, earpads damp with sweat, and across the frosted glass, written in streaks of condensation as though traced by a finger, were the words, KEEP listening. That night, at exactly 2:04 a.m., the station came alive on its own, and a familiar voice, smooth and calm, whispered through the static, "Good evening, Fairview. This is Derek Moore. Tonight, we'll be talking about the accident at the corner of 5th and Main.